listening to the Millennial's Choice Show, Canada's most trusted podcast on all things real estate, finance, and entrepreneurship. Here's your host, Matthew Ablakan.
Welcome to the Millennial's Choice Show, you guys. I'm here with my co-host, my brother. He is from the same mother. We have confirmed it. Danny Ablakan. Danny, welcome to the show.
What's going on, everyone?
That joke is behind us now. We're moving on from that joke.
Thank God.
Yes. I will come up with a new one. And, I think this is a very timely episode. It's something that is not really being talked about much in the real estate industry here in Canada. For the purposes of, where we are operating out of, most of the information we present is, applicable to the province of Ontario. But this is something that is happening around the world. There's a major supply crunch taking place right now in the real estate industry. And what I mean by that is it's very simple. There are not enough homes available for Canadians and for people around the world. The United States is facing the exact same crunch right now as we speak. So if there are not enough homes for regular Canadians, for people who want to buy a home, how about for rentals, where you have all these immigrants coming in? They're banned from buying a home for 2 years. They're going to need to live somewhere, which means they're going to rent. And we have a major supply issue when it comes to rental housing. RBC reported, and Bloomberg actually reported this. RBC has come out and said Canada needs over 330,000 new rental properties just to keep up with demand over the next 3 years. And that's not going to happen.
That's insane. And I'm excited for today's episode because this can apply to anybody. So if you're a tenant, if you're a landlord, even if you're a homeowner, this message is going to help you just know what's going on in the market right now. And we're going to talk a little bit about a few different things. We're going to talk about landlords, what to look out for when looking for the right tenant, tenants, what to expect when looking out in terms of finding a place to rent. Just a bunch of really good stuff for everybody.
I've been a landlord first, and then I became a tenant. And I'm still a landlord during this time as a tenant. And then once we moved into our home, I'm still a landlord. So I know exactly what it takes. We've helped out hundreds of people who are investors find tenants as well. And we've helped tenants find places to live. So what's happening right now in our real estate market and what's to come in the next 3 years and probably even beyond that, but let's just focus on the short term. That's going to impact tenants, landlords, first-time home buyers, everyday Canadians, developers. It's going to impact everything. Even our banking system will be impacted because of the way that these deals are looked at, but also because of the way that builders are financed. Because a lot of builders right now, what they're doing, nobody's talking about this, you guys. This is such a critical point. Even though builders are not launching new sites where you can buy a pre-construction condo or a townhouse or single-family home or semi-detached, the construction is still taking place on some of the older projects. But even though the new housing starts are not beginning, they're not launching these new sites, builders are still developing rentals. They're still building rentals. There's just no launch. They're not selling anything. They're keeping it.
Yeah, they keep it.
They're building rentals, apartment buildings, large complexes for rentals because there's a need for it. And here's further proof. If you don't take my word for it, the federal government has launched a new initiative. They've had plenty of initiatives in the past, billions of dollars into affordable housing. We're not here to discuss what affordable housing means, but the point is they're incentivizing developers to build rentals. Okay.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? They know that this is coming. This is happening right now as we speak. Maybe you're like us. You're everyday guys. Our parents came here in the 80s. They met here, got married in Canada, and they have a house. They've raised 2 kids. Maybe you don't come from money and you're building this on your own. You're trying to figure out how to take advantage of this. You don't need the whole pie. You just need a few crumbs, a few pieces, little pieces. So you're not going to build an apartment building or multiple complexes or ever own a big apartment building, but you could pick up a rental here and there and make you money and build wealth for your family and pass it on to the next generation. This is happening right now. People want to talk about what's the next big thing, what's the next, crypto that's going to run and all these things. I'm telling you, the facts, the information is here. It's right in front of you guys for buying rental property. I'm not telling you to buy a bigger home. and you have to eat these, big interest rates and all this stuff. I'm not saying that. And maybe possibly get impacted during a market correction and you're forced to sell your property if you lose your job, etc. That's not what I'm talking about. That's what the mainstream news is talking about. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about rental properties. Buying rental properties, positioning yourself as a landlord, even if you live at home with your parents, but you're in a position to do so, that would be my suggestion.
Definitely. And let's talk a little bit about why. Why is this happening? Why is there huge surplus in demand right now, or surge in demand happening? And we've kind of spoken about it before in other episodes, but what's happening right now, guys, with the interest rates is having a huge effect on a lot of people that normally would go into the buying pool, but instead are renting. And as a result, there's less supply, less units available, and that's causing rents to go through the roof. Right, Matt?
Yeah, so there's a shortage of housing, especially for, the rental housing. Because think about it. How does rental housing get created? If builders are not developing it, like they're not building, like let's say I'm a landowner. I own a piece of land and I want to build. But what do I want to build on that land? If I'm able to build, let's say a 20-unit apartment building, and that's what I want to be in that business of multifamily real estate, rentals. That's what I want to be in. Well, if I don't build that, where does the supply come from?
Yep.
Right? It comes from investors who buy rental properties, who buy a property and say, we're not going to live in it, we're going to rent it out. So supply is at an all-time low in Canada. It's at an all-time low. And if supply is at an all-time low for housing in general, then that means it's going to impact the rental market as well.
Yeah.
There's always less rental supply than there is, regular housing, because most people that are in the market may not be investors. They want to buy a home to live in. So if people are not turning that home around and saying it's a rental, there's less rental housing. So the major issue is always going to be supply for these kinds of things, demand and supply. That's the most major issue. But there are other underlying issues that are impacting that. And, one of them is rising interest rates. One of them, it was the pandemic. And as a result, the world shut down,
yep.
Supply bottlenecks and all these things that are impacting the development of new housing. One of the most important things we have in Ontario that's impacting this, and I was very careful not to include it in that list I just mentioned,
yep.
is the red tape with municipalities. There are a lot of projects in queue with different municipalities across Ontario that developers have to wait 18 months, 2 years, just to get the city to approve that project. As a result, that's, causing a delay in new developments to start.
But why do you think, what's the incentive for the municipality to delay, development? Because obviously we all agree that, more supply is needed, right? In order to, appease the demand that there is right now for, let's say, rentals and even just housing in general. Why, explain to anybody listening or watching this, why isn't the municipality fixing that? Why aren't they working on, increasing their times and approving developments?
I'm not a developer, but that's why recently the legislation that, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, put out to speed up this process. Part of the reason why it's taken a lot of backlash is because the municipalities don't have the workforce to support it, according to them. I know there's a bunch of other reasons regarding the conservation areas and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to get into that. But the point is, he's trying to speed up the process. And a lot of developers are pushing for this because developers are business people at the end of the day. They want to make money. And if they're not able to make money, they're tying up a piece of land, which involves a lot of money. They're borrowing a lot of money to develop the piece of land that costs money and interest and all that. And the sooner they're finished from a project, the sooner they make their money. So developers are sitting on a project, big projects, 10 years minimum.
But do you think that they're sitting on it? So go ahead.
Let me just finish. Let me answer
that.
that question. So what's the incentive to do that? You got to ask a developer, but part of the reason why it happens is there's a lot of just political red tape. I've mentioned the story of, a big developer here in Ontario put a pause on their projects because the municipality didn't even want to look at the project because during that season, that month, bats were nesting in the area on that piece of land. They didn't even want to consider the builder relocating the bats to a different area, paying for it. The municipality didn't want to consider the builder doing that. And they said, you know what, we'll look at it next year. Why?
Why next year? Yeah.
Why next year? Why can't you consider a plan? So it's politics, Dan.
And just a follow-up question on that I was going to ask you before was, Do you think that the stop or the slowdown of supply and, you know, developers developing has a lot to do with the city and the red tape that you're talking about right now? Or do you think that it has a lot to do with developers not being able to anticipate the costs of developing because of cost of goods have increased, and we're kind of in a weird time right now in this market where there's a lot of uncertainty? Do you think it's more because of the red tape or because of just the uncertainty of the market, and developers don't want to, you know, price something out now, as you know, go to sales, and then costs of, you know, lumber goes up and all these other things?
Yeah, it's it's a combination of it. I've had big developers tell me directly, and they said, we just can't anticipate what the cost of materials or trades is going to be 6 months from now, 12 months from now. And so to understand that better, you have to understand that the way that a developer gets their financing from a construction lender is they have to meet a certain threshold of sales. So if a developer launches a project now, they've already spoken to their trades, they've already spoken, kind of got an estimate of what it's going to cost when the time comes. They obviously can't commit to that today because they haven't sold the project yet. And because it's very uncertain times right now where they're not blowing out a building in a weekend, it's taking a little bit longer to sell, right? So it might take 6 months, 12 months to sell. So as a result, they can't properly price out the project as a result of that. So that's why it's causing some delays. That'll be, you know, further impacted with interest rates, further impacted with supply chain issues, material issues.
So it's all connected.
Labor, it's all connected.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest reason. And then with regards to the red tape, remember, most developers, they can't launch a project unless, or they don't want to launch a project. And this is what prudent developers do, is they want to get their zoning approved. They want to get their plan approved. I know some developers go to market, they start selling. They don't even have zoning approved yet. They don't even have permission from the city to build what it is they're saying they're going to build.
Yeah, and that's happened before.
It happens. And then sometimes those projects get canceled. Most of the time, developers still go to market and they need zoning, but at that point, it's very clear that they're going to get the zoning.
Got it.
But you never know. So most developers want to wait, make sure that's, you know, they don't want to chance anything. Why would you go launch, sell, put a condition in the agreement saying if we don't get the zoning, we could terminate the agreement?
Yeah.
Like, you want to kind of have your ducks in a row.
Pretty much, or have a really good high probability that it's going to go through.
Exactly.
Like you're saying.
So I'm not a developer, but that's what developers we work with tell us.
Makes sense, yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many, you know, things about it that affect all of this. But what you have to keep in mind, developers are business people. They own a piece of land. They want to make money. They want to keep that ride going. And that's what they do. And a lot of developers just don't want to do that right now. And they can't afford a lot of developers can't afford to have something go wrong in their project.
Yeah.
So they need to make sure that there's a lot of certainty on things, and we're living in very uncertain times.
For sure, because there's a lot of money involved with that kind of stuff, right? Like, you're not talking tens of thousands, you're talking about millions of dollars on the line.
I'll put it to you this way: $100 million project, to build $100 million project, is a small project in comparison to most developments. $100 million is a small building. Might be at like I'm not even gonna guess, but like, you know, an 8-story building or something. Nothing crazy.
That's crazy, man. Yeah. But I'm glad we kind of talked about that side of things.
Like IQ condos, like Islington and the Queensway, like that's like a $400 million, $500 million bill.
I never would have thought that.
Probably around there, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we kind of talked about the supply kind of challenges that we have right now when it comes to the red tape and developers and costs and stuff. But I want to shift gears, going back to, let's say, landlords and tenants. When it comes to tenants right now, people that are looking to get into the rental market and have their own place, let's talk about a little bit about, you know, what they can do to have the best edge or the best chance to get their application approved. Because a lot of people, let's say, that are still living with their parents don't know this, but when you're trying to go and apply for a place for rent, with, let's say, a single individual landlord, I'm not talking about a rental apartment where it's run by property management, even though they do this too, you have to pretty much provide them and qualify, and by providing them with certain documents, right, that they're going to ask you for, such as, you know, your job letters, pay stubs and stuff like that. But let's talk to them a little bit about how we were able to help people with that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we work with tenants and landlords. With tenants, it's very simple, and you have to understand the market that you're in. Number one, have a positive attitude.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to come in, as again, I respect you. I have tenants. There's nothing bad about renting. We rented our whole life. We had a portfolio of 10 properties we were renting. Like we were renting where we lived.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that. And nobody should take what I'm saying with that kind of tone. But my point is, have a positive attitude. Sometimes you get tenants that want the world. Just like some first-time home buyers, they want the world, and it doesn't exist.
It's true.
And know the market that you're in.
Yeah.
The whole point of why we just gave you the reasons for supply issues and all that stuff is so that you understand the market that you're in.
Yes.
And if you understand the market that you're in, then respectfully, beggars can't be choosers.
For sure.
So if there's a low amount of rental housing available, and there's all these people competing against you to find a place to live,
yeah,
then you need to obviously put your best foot forward. What does that look like? You need to have great credit. You need to have great income to find a rental. Yes, of course. Why would anybody, just because you're renting, why would anybody take you, put you in the property they bought, they qualified for a mortgage, they put a down payment, they're taking on all the risk, and it's their name on the loan, not yours, and they're going to take someone with 550 credit score. You couldn't even pay your credit card debt. You expect the landlord to believe that you're going to pay the rent?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So great income, great credit, have references. If you live at home, ask your parent, hey, mom and dad, are you willing to co-sign this lease for me? Strengthen the application a little bit. Have personal references. Maybe you could get a reference from a lawyer or doctor or somebody who is a little bit more highly regarded in society to give you a reference.
Yeah.
If you don't have a reference from a past landlord.
For sure.
If you have a reference from a past landlord, make sure it's a good one.
Definitely. And just on that point, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I go through this pretty much like on a weekly basis where, we get a call and somebody has that kind of mindset like you were describing and says, so I'm looking for, let's say, for example, a 1-bedroom plus den or a 2-bedroom condo, 2-bath condo, and I'm not looking to spend more than $2,000, and I need 2 parking spots, and
downtown Toronto,
and let's say like downtown, and they're like, okay, and I'm like, okay, sounds good. Like, and I always obviously vet and ask questions, right? Because we want you to learn more about the person before spending more time with them, because some people have certain expectations. And for example, that person was like to me, and this is a real story. He's like, yeah, I don't have a job right now. I have no income. And I asked him like, oh, like what's going on? And he's like, oh, like I just got laid off and I'm just not working right now. I'm on EI. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, are you like looking for work? He's like, yeah, but I'm not in a rush. Okay. Fair enough. And I'm like, okay, well, how about your credit? Like what's going on there with your credit situation? Do you have good credit? It's decent. It's actually like in the 500s. Cause I asked him like, what do you mean by decent?
Oh, is this a true story?
This is real. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm not, this is real. This just literally happened this past week. And he's like, yeah, like it's in the 500s. But it's totally okay because I have a really good cosigner, my mom. I'm like, okay. I'm like, sounds good. I'm like, the only thing I want to point out though is even though you have a strong cosigner, the landlords will not necessarily, that doesn't mean that they'll feel comfortable enough with you moving into their place.
Why would they pick you? Like if they could pick someone else with a job, income,
and I said
credit.
That.
Why would they pick you?
And the thing was with this person,
because you're a nice person.
The thing is with this person though, not attitude, but the way he was talking was like, yeah, like so what it's if normal, I don't have income or credit? I have a cosigner. Or I'm like, well,
so what? Yeah. Well, how are you gonna pay for it? Like, what do you mean? So what?
I'm like, so when they're gonna ask you, how are you gonna pay for the rent? EI is not going to be a good enough answer because we all know you won't be able to afford it on EI. And first of all, with all that being said, I'm like, you won't be able to find a 2-bedroom condo and 2-bath condo for $2,000. That's like, that doesn't exist. So you got to manage the expectation. You got to be real, right, with yourself first and realize what's going on with the market, like you're saying, because if they're not in tune with the market, I don't blame that person. But once I explain and say, look, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you, just plain and simple, because this is your situation. And a lot of people right now, landlords are expecting AAA tenants. And I know that gets thrown around very loosely, but
I had someone recently, a realtor, she tried so hard and I'm like, you're such a noob. And I don't care that you're new. I just don't like not the attitude, but I don't like the tone, right?
The way they go about it.
It's like, come on, just say it for what it is. Call it for what it is.
Yeah.
And she's like, I have a AAA tenant. Okay. How are they AAA? Well, they both came to Canada last year. They're working on getting their PR. They work at the same job, good credit, blah, blah, blah. We're coming in $100 below asking price, moving date of 45 days out. So first of all, landlords don't want to wait 45 days and tie up the property. Number one, that's over a month of vacancy.
Yep.
And she goes, yeah, but they're AAA. How are they AAA? One of them is on probation at work, and the other one has a credit score of 650. How are they AAA?
That's not AAA.
That's not AAA. But that's what the building rents for. No, it doesn't. I sold half the building. I rented these units, and they're going for 25. That's what we're asking. Your offer sucks. The tenants are not AAA, and yet you're coming in with this attitude of take it or leave it. Okay, we'll leave it.
We'll leave it.
Because
that
at the end
happens
of
all
the
the
day,
time, though. It's crazy.
Because you have to know the market you're in.
Exactly.
That is not the market you're in.
Yeah.
And for landlords, on the flip side of things, be patient. There are good people who want to be tenants. They don't want to buy, or they're short-term tenants. They're good people.
Yep.
They don't want to buy at this point in time, or can't afford to buy at this point in time. Be patient. Check their credit. Check the employment letters. Check the pay stubs. Check bank statements if you need to. And don't be always like necessarily having to give info back as to why you don't want to accept them.
Yep.
You want to go a different direction. You want to wait for another offer.
You want to keep your options open.
You want to keep your options open.
For sure.
Yeah, sometimes it's worth being vacant a month if you get a better tenant. Don't 100%. Just rush into it and lower your price. And if you lower your price, if you're one of those landlords who listens to the realtor, list it $300, $200, $400 below market value so we can rent it quickly, well, guess who you're going to attract? You're going to attract the bottom feeder tenants of the market that may not be the best quality tenants available. So that's the reality of it.
That's just how it works. Exactly.
So be patient. The best years are ahead. Doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket a little bit because the rates are high or whatever. Be patient. Rents go up every single year. They go up so much that in Ontario, we have rent control on most property types. Yeah. Be patient.
And on the flip side of that too, because again, we're not on anyone's side necessarily. Like we said, we've helped landlords and tenants both. On the flip side, I've seen it where I've brought actual AAA tenants to a property, shown it to them, and they want to put an offer on. Literally 800 credit score, like solid income, salaries, like really, really good jobs, and landlord's just like, we think we're gonna just wait and pass on it, but not really give kind of an explanation. This is more for the agents out there. That doesn't make sense. Like there has to be a reason. I
had an agent when we were looking for Sarah and I to rent.
Yeah.
We found the place we're gonna rent in, but when I found a different place, it was a nicer place, whatever, and I was gonna pay the whole year in advance. Don't want any rent payments. I was gonna give it voluntarily to the landlord.
Yeah.
Their agent said, we're just going to keep it vacant. You said you have all these properties. We couldn't find them when we searched you up. The agent is telling me this. Couldn't find the properties under your name, blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, I go, you searched me up and you couldn't find properties under my name. Where did you search up? He tells me where he searched up, York Region, this and that. I go, okay. So you thought I owned 10 properties in York Region. You didn't even bother asking. And how did you search them up? Using your personal name. I go, you think I own property under my personal name? I go, you think someone who has more than 5 properties, someone who's doing what I'm doing, the broker of record, owns the company, you could search us up and find all the information. You think I would put a property under my personal name?
I can't stand people like that, though.
And so they didn't rent it to us. They thought I was not.
Yeah, but I can't
credit
stand
score
people
over
like that.
800. Like lots of trade lines.
It doesn't make sense. Like that actually boggles my mind. That
but it worked. It worked out because then the place we found. Then I broke the lease 8 months later, and instead of pay, but the point is, I'm like you as an agent just screwed over your job. Just screwed over your landlord.
But that's the thing that bothers me, because let's say you have those clients that are really good tenants, but the realtor representing the landlord is not advising them the right way.
And most realtors that are like that are not. Most realtors don't own real estate.
Which doesn't make sense.
Most realtors don't own real estate. Chop this clip up. Most realtors don't own real estate. They talk real estate and they buy crypto. They talk real estate and they buy stocks and bonds and mutual funds. They talk real estate and they lend money. They're private lenders.
It's all just
They don't buy real estate. Don't hire realtors to represent you as a landlord if they don't own real estate. They won't know how to properly represent you as a landlord. They're actually going to hope and pray that you're going to advise them to, ask for these documents and ask for these kinds of things from tenants. Hire a realtor who owns real estate to help you find tenants. They know what they're doing. In fact, I might go as far to say you're better off if a realtor doesn't own real estate, has never been a landlord, has never been a tenant, you're better off maybe hiring a property manager to help you find a tenant than that realtor.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And again, not to bash realtors. We're not doing that here. But
realtors,
we're just telling real.
It is.
Yeah, we're calling what it is because this is real life stuff.
Truth.
So it's one of those situations
we're doing
where
the industry a favor here.
Exactly. So going back to the landlords, be very careful about who you hire as your agent, because think about it. If you're getting them for a discount, you're going to get discount service. And those agents are not really going to care. They're not going to advise you the right way because they're just doing it just to potentially maybe get future business, whatever the case is. So I just wanted to put that out there because it happens a lot more often than people would think. And it's like,
so often.
What's the reason? I'm not understanding.
Or
like
when
these tenants are so good.
Or when you have a tenant, my biggest pet peeve, when you have a tenant, and guys, why are we going off on this tangent? This isn't scripted. Is you as a consumer, if you're a realtor listening to this, take the advice. If you're a consumer, take the advice. This matters. It's your investment. It's not a small deal. It's a big deal. So when you are hiring an agent, remember how many tenants have we represented where we go in and the agent just doesn't get back to us?
Oh,
we want to submit an offer. We want to now submit an offer. The agent is not responding to you. So what do? We explain that to the tenant. Hey, the agent's not responding. We don't know why. There's obviously no way of us to get a hold of the seller or the landlord. And we have to move on. Yeah. Let's move on and find another place.
It's happened so many times with AAA tenants, the worst. And I'm just like, guys, I followed up, I've called, blah, blah, blah. And then I keep following
text messages,
keep
phone
following
calls,
up the agent. The agent, oh, hey, sorry, I was on vacation. I'm like, you have a listing. Like your landlord could have secured a really good tenant. Not sure what you're doing, but I think that's it for my little rant on that. I just had to put that out there because it's very much related to what we're talking about.
Landlords and tenants, you have to beware. Do not work with just anybody. Okay? We just told you what a landlord should be aware of in terms of a tenant, what a tenant should be aware of when they're going into this process, right? And now we're telling you guys both what to be aware of when you're going to hire a representative. Plain and simple. And as a tenant, it costs nothing to you to hire a representative. That's typically what happens, the industry, the unspoken or unwritten industry standard. It doesn't cost you anything. And as a landlord, obviously you're going to pay the realtor a commission to help you find a tenant. It's a write-off. That commission is a write-off for you at the end of the year. And at the same time, you don't just want to hire anybody, because like sometimes you hire me or you hire somebody else down the street. Our commission might actually be the same when it comes to a rental. So why not hire the best, in my opinion. No, you're paying almost the same thing. We might be a little bit more expensive, but hey, you get what you pay for.
And people have said to me like, well, people have said flat out, well, why do I need you to rent out my place? Why can't I just put up ads on Facebook and Kijiji? You could. My answer is like, please feel free to go ahead and put up those ads, but you're going to get a certain type of person reaching out to you.
Forget about all that stuff.
But it is important because realtors typically screen people. And, if the people aren't great applicants, realtors aren't going to waste their time doing showings.
They're not going to work with them.
They get filtered out, right? But
in addition to that, to build on top of that, listen, if you bought a property, that one property, and all you want to do is be a property manager, you have nothing better to do in your life than to be a property manager, to take phone calls, to take showings and show properties to people you don't know, you haven't vetted, could be criminals, you don't know. And you want to then draft up a lease or talk to a lawyer or someone to draft up a lease for you or use an old lease, prepare all that. And then make sure you meet with them, make sure you inspect it, make sure you exchange keys and checks, make sure you guys do all that stuff. You want to be a property manager? By all means.
Go for it.
Just to save $1,000, $2,000 that you can write off, by all means, go right ahead. We engage landlords and tenants for the purposes of future business. That's why we do it. We're not getting rich off of that. But that's why we do it. And so with that being said, if that's the route you want to take, by all means, but it does not make sense. You're not getting into the real estate business to have a full-time job.
Unless that's what you want. If that's what you want, that's a different story.
And the only people that I've seen do that, and even in this position, I don't think they should do that, but it makes a little bit more sense, are people in their 70s and 80s who are retired, who have a bunch of properties, and they prefer to deal directly with the tenants, and they have literally nothing better to do, and that keeps them going. Fine.
Very different.
Fine, you might say, and they still hire agents for a lot of things, but fine, that might be a little different because it keeps them busy. It's something to do. You don't need that. You need turnkey. You're a young person, turnkey. I bought a new property. I don't want to have to deal with headaches of fixing it, and all these different things. I have a full-time job. I'm trying to get married. I'm trying to start my own life, trying to have a family. You don't need the headaches that come with real estate investing. I know, because I'm in the career of real estate sales, but I also own property.
Yep.
And I also do act as a property manager. That's a little bit different because it goes hand in hand with what I already do. I don't have to switch focuses on what do I do for this. I don't know how to deal with that. And then my job, they go hand in. I know how to deal with them both. Yeah. But that's different, and even myself, we're getting to a point now. I'm just like, I got to hire a property manager. So
for sure,
it doesn't make sense to go about it that way, to do it yourself to find a tenant. It's a big deal. Hire someone who's going to do it the right way. Don't paint us all with the same brush of, they're all realtors. They all do it the same way. That's completely false.
It's like me saying every contractor, does everything the same way, and they all scam
doctor,
people.
Every lawyer,
come on, that's just
every grocery store, every,
yeah.
it's very ignorant.
It's not the same. Yeah.
A lot of you guys bash realtors. I know why. They have a really bad attitude. Sometimes I know I come off as cocky or condescending. I'm not. I'm a very nice guy when you get to know me. But it's. I get it. We sometimes don't like realtors as well. So I get it. But nonetheless, there are good apples out there.
100%.
Find us. Take a bite.
Take a bite.
That should be the new slogan. Find us and take a bite.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, that's all I got to say. You want to add anything else before we wrap this up?
This was perfect. If you're listening to this still, great job. We really appreciate you guys taking the time. And if you are someone that is looking to be a tenant or be a landlord, and you need some guidance or advice, and you want to get into the market, or you want some experts to look out for some really good tenants for you if you're a landlord, then just let us know, reach out to us. If you do have questions, we'd be happy to help. We're not lawyers on the matter, but at the same time, we'd definitely be able to point you in the right direction if there's anything that you guys want to know about this stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. And take it from someone who's been a landlord, who's been a tenant. We respect you guys. And if there is anybody, it does exist out there, so I have to say it, who feels that there's a stigma attached or affiliated with being a tenant, that's all in your head, or you've had some really, really bad people in your life who have said that or said it in a certain conversation or something, that is completely false.
Yeah.
Some of the wealthiest people in the world rent where they live. The wealthiest people in the world rent where they live. So don't let that be a stigma. If you need a place to live and you want to rent where you live and then invest in properties, it's a great strategy. We've done that. Don't limit yourself to saying, I just can't get into the market because I can't buy the home that I want to live in, and you're living at your parents'. Use your parents' house as an advantage. Don't you want to give your kids an advantage one day? Yes, sure. That's part of the reason why you're doing this. Maybe, you stay at home with your parents and you buy a rental property. There's different strategies out there, and that's all I got to say, folks. So appreciate you guys. If you listened all the way, like and subscribe, share it with your family and friends. If you were watching this on YouTube, download it on any one of our podcast outlets. Visit financialfreedomclub.ca. We haven't mentioned that in a little while. /ebook. We got a bunch of courses there. Ebook for free. Talk about all these things. And until next time,
we're out.
We're out, Toronto.